So for my question 2, how does your product engage with audiences and how would it distribute as real media text? I am going to be talking in the broken down subheadings of the question, just so then I can go more into detail. So to ensure that my magazine, and what does it contain to make sure that it actually does, I think that one of the main things for my magazine is the gossip and the facts, would you say, like the info about the celebs' lives, which would really make it interesting. I think that that's quite a main thing for my magazine, as I have mentioned a few times that it comes down to you finding out things which you didn't know about some of your favourite celebrities. That's part of the reason as well why I named it Reveal, because you find out a few people, or specifically celebrities, hidden talents or secrets which not everyone would know. So I think that everybody likes a little bit of gossip now and again. So because of that, I think that it definitely would sell and that I wouldn't need to worry about it not selling. Next, on one of my pages, Dress to Impress, I have actually included where I've talked about holiday destinations and where it would be nice to go around and all of that, and different holidays. It's quite nice. Anyway, this is quite appealing for some audience members, as obviously you get to see by the secondary images what different places are like and what she likes, and it's quite nice actually, just the way which it gives a little sample of what sort of places she likes to visit. Obviously you can tell quite a lot by the places which someone visits, so I think that that's quite nice as well. Next, as you can see, I do have on my next page actually, I've got a few secondary images about jewellery. This can be quite specific and personal, but I think that this would allow people to see what the latest fashion is and what everyone's wearing and where the best places to go to get jewellery are. So this is obviously going to ensure that people would want to buy my magazine. I do think that some people would want to get it for the motivational stuff, which I've included, such as on my simple double page spread of my main article, I've got who said that you can only be good at one thing. This rhetorical question is quite clever, I think, because it's saying that she doesn't just listen to what everyone thinks and what everyone expects of her. I think it's quite nice that actually. And it would definitely appeal to a specific audience type, which is good actually. One thing which I have throughout my whole magazine in all of my models is that there is quite a casual and relaxed vibe, and it's approachable almost. So you wouldn't be intimidated if you saw any of these people on the streets or anything, because they're casually dressed, but then I wouldn't say slobby. For example, my fashion phenomenon, God, I can't say that word. She's wearing a teddy bear puffer jacket thing. Like, that's really nice and stylish, but it's quite casual at the same time. So I think that my magazine's captured that balance, which is important. I also think that what would appeal to some audience members is how you can aspire. So towards the end of my magazine, I have a short story about one specific person and how they managed to change their life around, and it shows you what they're up to now. I think that this would definitely persuade some audience members to get it, because it's nice to see the inside of people's lives and how it could happen to anyone if you try. So for the question, how is my magazine attractive for the buyer? I think that one of the main things is that my magazine is based on a black background. I've done this for a few reasons, but in terms of being attractive for the buyer, it definitely makes my magazine stand out from all of the others, as it is against typical codes and conventions, which would say that a magazine has to be on a white background. I think that I have mentioned this before, I know, but I think that it does really bring together my magazine and make it stand out. Okay, it did make it harder, for example, to edit some of the photos, but I do prefer the overall look and vibe which I get from the magazine, bearing in mind that it is now using this technique instead. I also think that it's attractive for the buyer because of that pinky purpley vibe which I've got going on. So I've brought it into the masthead, into some of the subheadings and the sub-articles. I've also brought it into each page. So I have a decorative strip, which I interpret it as like a bookmark, but I've made sure that they're on every single page, except for the simple double page spread, so that there's like a coherentness for the whole magazine, which I think is quite important. But yeah, I also think what makes it attractive for the buyers is my images. So I have done different angles, the use of lighting is quite different, and how they do go over just a single page, which isn't normally a typical convention, as when a magazine's printed out, obviously the image would get stuck in between where it goes into the binder. So that's normally why they don't have it across both. But I think that for my magazine, it did add something special, so I thought that it would be important to add. I also think what makes it attractive for buyers is how a lot of the images are relatable. So, for example, my last model in my magazine has a very natural face of makeup. Like, she's only done her eyebrows, put some mascara on, and that's it. And then even like my dancing sensation, she's got no makeup on whatsoever. My fashion phenomenon, I still can't say that word, she is wearing a little bit of makeup, but it's not over the top again. So's my Queen of Comfort and my main article. I think that by doing this, it does show that it is okay, and that even magazines should start to show that it's okay not to cover your face in makeup. But it might appeal to the more Eastern market for that reason, because the whole beauty in not coating your face in makeup is quite important over there. I've also got quite a nice aesthetic going throughout. So one of the most proud things for me is the bar, which I've faded at the bottom. So this includes the page number, my magazine, the website, and the date for which this issue is. That for me really adds something to the whole magazine, due to the fact that it's just really pleasing the way which it flows throughout all of the pages, and I'm happy that I included it. I'm very happy about that. I know that all of the little details which a magazine puts in aren't always appreciated by the audience, as they just assume that it's there. But one thing that I would make sure with my magazine is that it was perfect, because my OCD makes sure that everything is perfect. For example, on my Dress to Impress page and Spend It the Right Way, all of the images, they are the exact size of my articles, my article widths, and even the 3 which are in front of the image, which I know it's like a small detail, but this is really important to me. I've also made sure that all of the writing's the same, and yeah, that's really important to me. I think that it does make the difference. Even if they don't notice it, the audience sort of expects that it's there. And obviously, I want to make sure that my magazine does have it there. So when it comes to the audience theories and how it applies to my product, I know that this is quite important actually for the whole magazine. So I wanted to make sure that I did get this bit right. So to start off with the social grades, I know for a fact that my magazine would be aiming at the A, B and C1. So I think that the A and B is because of some of the content. Like, for example, the holidays. They're not going to be cheap holidays, but also some of the clothing won't be all that cheap. So that's why I'm thinking those lot. But on the other hand, I think that my magazine also applies to C1, because I do have some of those cheaper brands included within my magazine. I wanted to make sure that I did have this small connection to show that my magazine is diverse, which is important in my opinion. For the uses and gratification theories, I was thinking about this for a while actually, because unlike everything else, I did actually struggle to think about this one. In the end, I ended up thinking that my magazine was about information and personal identity. First of all, I thought that my magazine was information because you find out about where the best places are to travel to, when's the best time of year, what clothing you should buy for each holiday, but also where the best places are to get clothes, which, okay, it might not be information which everyone wants to know, but it's still information which will apply to my audience. I also think that my magazine is heavily based on personal identity. This is just because for my fashion phenomenon, I really can't say that word, and my Queen of Comfort, both of them are aspirers to be like. So they explain in their articles about how they've developed as people themselves and how they've changed in order to fit the standards of everything else. I think that this is really important to make sure that you do have a balance of, oh yeah, look, so this celebrity can horse ride and this one loves to do yoga, and I think it's a nice balance to have all of that, but then to also have, look, these people here, they were just ordinary like us, but then they changed this to change their whole life. I think that that's really important for my magazine as well. that's why I thought that it would be better to use the personal identity rather than anything else. For the psychographics, I thought that this was definitely interesting and difficult. So I think that to a degree all of them could apply to my magazine. For example, the mainstreamers. Obviously, any magazine could be a mainstream or could apply to mainstreamers if your magazine gets popular enough, because people would want to follow the trends and buy the magazines, and therefore it would be for mainstreamers. But I think that it could also be for aspirers, as they want to have all of the wealth and fame and life of luxury, which I have included in my magazine, saying, oh yeah, look, this person has changed their life and this is where they've got to, which is really important. However, I think that one page which I've got about different places could really appeal to explorers and their demographic. Okay, the whole magazine wouldn't be for them, but I think that it's important that I have accounted for that market as well. So it's not closing my target market off to anyone in particular. I think that as a lot of my clothes, and what I'm talking about isn't for the, I'm not sure how to phrase that, but you need to make sure that you do have some money. So it would obviously be for succeeders. I think that overall my magazine is mainly for the succeeders, aspirers, I think. I think it's definitely for them, but I have included degrees for the explorers and mainstreamers as well. I think that this is pretty cool that I've been able to integrate other what are they called? Other psychographics, just to show that it can adapt and change to depending on who the audience is, which is obviously important. So next I'm going to be talking about the selling techniques. So I've split this up into the traditional and the new technology, as I've nicknamed it. So for the traditional, I want to include cup adverts and posters. I know that no matter what, I want it to be environmentally friendly, because there's no point in advertising and then cutting out that large section of people who do care about the environment, because it is a growing sector and it is important to make sure that you don't segregate those people as well. Anyway, back to the point. I want to include my cup adverts because I know that a lot of my demographic and target audience will be spending time in a coffee shop and just relaxing and spending time doing that. So it's important that I do make sure that I address the areas or the places where they're most likely going to be. When it comes to the posters, I think as I've mentioned, I want to make sure that I included travel bit in my magazine. People are going to be moving about, and I think that if you have a very eye-catching picture, like which I've got in my magazine, especially the one on Queen of Comfort, if I had that image, for example, plastered on a large poster, I think that it would definitely catch attention, which is what I want to do. Moving on to the new technology, the first point which I had would be influencers. So this would definitely attract my aspirer audience, as if I had a famous celebrity like, I don't know, Shawn Mendes, for example, if he was at one of my openings for a stall, or if he had a picture taken with my magazine, that would definitely make the mainstreamers get the get the magazine. But it also means that the audience would know that it is specifically aimed at them. It also means that it is relevant and it is for the age group which I intended it to be. I'd have to make sure that the influencer who I chose was in the right age category. Not age category, like the target group which I was aiming for. Because if I choose someone who isn't, it may change my target audience up, or I may lose those target customers which I want and get a different target group, which isn't really what I want to do. Anyway, so when it comes to the influencers, I'll have to make sure that I get the right type of person who I want to be associated with my magazine. When it comes to the website, I think that this is important, and that almost everything has a website now. So to show that your magazine has a website as well shows that you're up to date and current. It also means that people will be allowed to see what's on your issues, and if they want to leave a comment on something, it means that they are able to do that. It also means that you have like an omnipresence online and that you are relevant and people can't forget you. So going to my age group, the majority of Instagram is filled by that age group, that category. So I think it is obvious that I go and have an Instagram account so that people can be up to date and posted about when something's coming out, and if there is a special feature article, or if an influencer wants to get involved with it. This obviously means that it would be able to go viral if something amazing happened, and that people could hashtag, and it would mean that my magazine was more relevant for my target audience, which is definitely important. Moving on, so I think that what my magazine could do is host an event. I think, although this may be difficult for a magazine, I think that it's important to host an event. It also means that it's easy for an influencer to get involved, and means that you'd get quite a lot of publicity for it as well. By doing this, it would obviously promote the magazine, but also allow other people to get involved and just be part of that whole environment. Going back quickly to the whole internet presence, I think that it would be stupid if I didn't have pop-up ads, as otherwise I wouldn't really be taking advantage of an internet presence. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to other opinions, as they do matter, especially when it comes to a magazine. So the first person who I'm going to analyse and talk about their opinions of my magazine is someone from my media called Sabina. Okay, so for my front cover, she said that she really liked my banner in the top corner. This, I think this is because it's not a typical convention which a lot of magazines follow, which makes it a bit more unique for my magazine. I tend to agree with this, and that was part of the reasons why I chose to do this instead of include a little button, for example, of what everything could be. So I think that's quite interesting. She also said that she quite liked the bar across the bottom, partly because it links into the rest of my magazine, but also she likes that the way which I've included a cell line in it, so then it's not just a waste of space. I think that both of these are a pretty good point, actually, and I do appreciate it quite a lot. Okay, so moving on to the contents page. First of all, she said that she loved my images, especially the top right one. I think this is partly because this image in particular, I did use a special technique while taking the photo, which meant that it does stand out from all of the rest of them, which is something definitely to consider. I also think that she also says that for my main image that she likes how I've cut it out and that it stands out from all the others which haven't been cut out, which I suppose is actually, that's a good point, which I hadn't really thought about. Okay, so moving on to the next double page, I have my dress to impress. So, Sabina mainly said that she liked how my title was presented. I do genuinely really appreciate that, because I spent a really, really long time making sure that all of the little lines lined up. So, for example, the dress matches up with the M on impress, and that the height of the dress too is the same as the I, and it did take me a very long time, and I'm glad that it is noticed and that she does appreciate it. She also said that she liked my my divider, she calls it, but my page bookmark thing, which is actually quite nice to know that it's not just me who notices it. Anyway, she says that it's a nice divider between the article and the main image, which is nice, actually. She also likes my fashion review, as it does stand out in the white text. Okay, moving on to spend it the right way. Okay, so she likes how I have organised the images on the this first note. So she likes how I've organised my secondary images and how they're all lined up, and yeah. She says that she also likes, again, my title and how it's laid out, and that is quite nice. Yeah. And that apparently the whole layout of my page is good as well, which is nice to hear. Okay, moving on to the next page. She says, this is my simple double page spread. So Sabina said that she really likes my name tag in the corner and how I've used the same banner as I have on the front cover. I like using these little ties in, as it does really make quite a big difference. But it's also nice to know that she's noticing those little details, which I have done, which is nice. She also said that my quote was a good one, and that the punctuation definitely added something to it. So for the next page, typically the page is the next big thing. She says that there is a consistent pattern on this page. I think she was talking about just the way in which I've carried on the whole theme of the page, and how even the directional shadows are the same. And yeah, she also says that it's a nice layout for a double page spread, how I've divided my main image and then my article and everything, which is nice to hear actually. So on the next page, she said that she likes my masthead and how I've got a nice vary of sizes, which obviously works. But also on this page, I haven't just gone for a plain background. That was one of the main things which she said that she really liked about this page, how I have got the wired lights in the background. Apparently it's quite unique and different. She also said that she likes my main image for this one, as her the use of the direct address does work and does make you want to look in the way which she's looking. Okay, yeah. Okay, so that was all of the stuff which she said about my main article. Now I'm going to move on to what she said about the rest of my magazine. So, first of all, for the Queen of Comfort, she liked how I've got a different use of lighting for the image, which I suppose is right actually, because for all of my main article images, they're quite bold and just flat-faced in the nicest way possible, but they're quite flat. But then again, that's what I thought would be best for her, just so then I could really focus on what she's wearing rather than being more arty. Anyway, so I thought that this lighting and positioning would work quite well for this artist in particular, because she is a designer herself, so that sort of makes sense to have it. She also says that by having a different layout for my spread, that it's unique and it looks good, which is nice to hear actually. Okay, so moving on to Hazel Brown. Again, she likes my title because thank God I've spent a long time on them, which is quite nice actually. She likes how the divider, as she calls it, but it's actually the page bookmark, she likes how it goes under everything. So by this I'm talking about the article as well as my main image, which is nice. Okay, she also likes the sizing of the secondary image, as it is impacting enough that the audience will notice it, but then not overwhelming. So for this double page, it is relating to the article before. So I mentioned a few times that Hazel likes to travel around and have a look at different places, and she likes to see and experience different areas and everything like that. So I thought that it would be quite interesting to include a little article about her travelling around Hong Kong and seeing where she likes and what sort of things she does and all of that, and how she experiences life on a day-to-day business. I think that this overall page has worked out pretty well, actually. I love how the majority of the page is full of images, and that I have created almost like a photo border thing going on, which is quite nice. But then I also have the text into 4 clear paragraphs in the centre with a very large pull quote underneath. I think that this page is simple but cute, and it works. Moving on to my dancing sensation. I think that the main thing is the images for these. So she likes how I've used the use of lighting to capture different elements of her face and how it's highlighted different parts, which is actually quite nice. Okay, and for the final article thing which I did, she again likes my title, thank God, after all I've spent on it. She also says that it's quite nice that I've added a white box around my text, just so then it is a little bit unique compared to all of the pages, but it's not overwhelming and imposing on the rest of the image, which is obviously important. So for this double page, it clearly links to my previous article, and I just wanted to have a sort of like an information page and a little bit more detail about stuff in my article. So I've only got 2 images on this page, both which are related because of the wrought iron, but I think that they're really nicely composed, and I love all of the lighting on them and the positioning, and I thought they were just lovely photos. So I've got a little bit of context why I've included those images in specific in the bottom left. And then in the top right, I've got a little quote which Ria said while we were doing the house tour with her, which is quite nice actually. I've stuck with my conventions, obviously, by having the little bar across the bottom. Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Beryl and what her opinions were. So, if I can get this straight. So, moving to the front cover again, sorry. I thought it was interesting, actually, how she picked up on details which Sabina didn't, which I suppose is good for the purpose of this, but I thought it was interesting how they both picked out different things, which sort of shows that you do need to make sure that every single detail is perfect, because people obviously pick out different things. Anyway, so first of all, Beryl said that she really liked the way which I've put my magazine website in the title and how it's good detailing apparently, which is always nice. She also says that for my top 10 influential models, it's eye-catching because it has a different style and it does pop out from the rest of my cell lines, which is always nice to hear. But it doesn't take too much attention away from my main article or main cell line, which is what I wanted to do. Unlike Sabina, she did mention the small cell line which I've included in my masthead. I've only seen this done in a few magazines, but I thought that it was a really cool and different convention to include, so I did want to include it. So I thought it was interesting that she picked up on that. Again, like Sabina, she did mention the banner in the top corner. This does sort of show me that it is worth putting them in and including them because it's eye-catching, as she said. Okay, so I thought this was quite nice actually. Beryl also said that I have a nice link between my masthead and my cell lines because of the gradient effect. I think the actual word is, I can't remember, I'll try and include it later if I can, but that's going to bug me. Anyway, so because I've included that on the words, it creates a nice link between them, which is nice to know that it's appreciated. Sorry. She also says that it works well, this gradient effect, on my main cell line, as it makes it eye-catching, which is obviously good. Again, like Sabina, she did comment on the banner at the bottom of the page and how it links to the rest of my magazine, which is always a nice thing. Okay, so for my contents page, she definitely went in for this one. So first of all, if I start off with the picture of Hazel Brown, she said that she liked how I'd faded the image, as it makes there be a less harsh edge, especially how there is a little bit of a space there, which is what I was worried about. So I didn't want it to seem as though harsh picture of my main article and then harsh picture of one of my feature articles. So it's nice to know that she did understand what I was trying to do. Again, she did like my main article image and how I've cut that one out compared to the others, which is nice. As she mentioned on the front cover, she liked the banner at the bottom of the page, which I've included the page number, the magazine, and the website and the issue date, which is always nice. She also mentioned that all of my subheadings have a very professional look towards them, and yeah, which I thought was quite nice. Yes. Okay, so moving on to the next page, which was the Dress to Impress. Okay, so on this page, what she said was that she liked the idea of including the secondary images as it does relate to my article content, which is a nice thing actually. That was the main thing which she said about this. She also said that all of the image articles were just the right amount, which is obviously relevant. And to be honest, I've seen some magazines which write essays and essays, and it is quite off-putting when they write too much, because obviously it's too much writing. Okay, so moving on to the next double page. She likes my images, the secondary images, as they do have symmetry, as each page has got 3 images on them. And yeah, she also said that she liked the detailing on the first 2 images, especially as I did edit them a fair bit, so then it looks as though there's a spotlight on them to really exaggerate and accentuate the jewellery which the model is wearing. Okay, moving on. Okay, so like Sabina said, on this simple double page, she likes the banner in the top corner as it links to my front cover as well as the rest of the pages, which is quite nice. Her exact words were actually, it creates a flow between the pages. Yes. She said that she likes the cutting out of my image. I think I mentioned this before, but it's very difficult to cut out an image from a white background onto a black background. I decided that the best thing to do would be to take it on a white background rather than a black, because that means that I wouldn't lose any of the detailing when I was trying to select and mask the image, which would be a disaster if that happened. I'm not even going to lie. Okay, so you also said that for the font which I've used for my pull quote, it looks very sophisticated, or it's a nice font and adds sophistication, which is nice actually. I think it's still nice that they both appreciate different elements of the magazine and it's not just all the same. Okay, so moving on to the next page. Beryl mentioned the use of angle, which I took the image at, and how it's nice that there's a bit of a variation. I have done this for a few reasons, but I think the main one is that mainly for the direct address, so then I can carry on the whole looking where the main article is and how that's going to change the audience perception. But anyway, so for in the article itself, she said that I've used a good use of font for the pull quote as it stands out but also links to all the other pages. This is quite nice, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, so she also mentioned my masthead was professional and eye-catching. Finally, for this page, she said that my intro paragraph captures the audience's attention, which Sabina didn't actually mention, which is quite nice to have something like that. Okay, so on this page, again, she did mention about the pose and how it was a general nice photo and that it was cut out quite nicely. And she did mention again how I have a nice and eye-catching masthead, which is always appreciated, not depending, due to the time which I did spend on it. Okay, so moving on to the Queen of Comfort. She likes the idea of overlapping the text with different colours. I think when she was talking about this, she was on about my masthead. So this was the only page actually where I fully overlapped words. I thought that this wasn't for the spacing because I did have enough space if I wanted to not overlap them. But I thought that I should, partly because it adds a little bit more sophistication to this page, but also it seems to cohere a little bit nicer than everywhere else. She also says that the decorative strip, it does again add something coherentness to the whole page. Yeah. She did mention how there was a lot of text, but because of the pull quotes, it doesn't seem too bad, actually, which is a good point to mention. Moving on to this page. On this page, she focused on the layout mainly and how it is quite professional looking. So on this page, I do have both images, my main image and my secondary image, pointing inward to the article itself, which I think is quite nice. I think that when she was talking about the layout as well, I've fit the masthead in and the intro paragraph quite nicely, but also my article flows across the pages well, and it doesn't seem as though it's too over the top or anything. Like for the other pages, she did say that my masthead was very eye-catching, which is actually becoming quite a bit of a theme. Anyway, okay, so talking about this double page, Beryl was actually very complimentary of this, as she loved how I have a range of close-ups to mid-shots to long shots. I think that this definitely does create variety, and that's one of the things which she kept talking about, of how, for example, I have zoomed in on her glasses and her hand holding the flower, but then I have got the wide shots so then someone can see exactly what she's wearing, where she is, and it's worked quite well, that page. Beryl also said that she likes how bold and imposing, really, that pull quote is, and the fact that I've put the 2 bars behind it to make it stand out even more. Beryl also said that she liked how I'd used a different font than just the Didot font, which I've used everywhere else. I thought that was quite nice, actually. So moving on to this
Dancing Sensation page. She said that the idea of the secondary image, was nice, and that it was like with the previous page. It's nice that I do have a secondary image, but it's not just square, that I've taken the time to cut it out. Okay. And then finally, for the last page, or the last article, she says that she likes my placement of letters for my masthead, which I do appreciate after I have spent a long time on it. And she said that the pull quote really does break up the text and it adds something to the whole page. So for the final page, Beryl really liked how I had two contrasting images, in the way which one of them was completely not facing the audience, and then one of them was facing forward but still not looking exactly to it. Beryl said that this clearly linked to all of the other images, as none of them really had direct eye contact with the audience, which is what I intended originally. She also mentioned that she likes how I had a large font for the almost like the image descriptor, but it's a little bit just relating it to the previous article. So I think that it's nice to know that she can clearly see that I am trying. Yeah, Beryl also liked how I had the two overlapping boxes behind my pull quote, which is nice. Bearing in mind that I didn't have a back page, Beryl said that this suited it quite well, as it was quite a plain page and it wasn't overwhelming with words and articles and everything, which apparently, according to her, is a normal convention. So yeah. So although that's only two people's opinions, I think that I've gathered quite a lot of information about it, or about my whole magazine, and it's definitely given me something to consider about how people focus on different areas. Okay, so now that I have talked about the whole part the whole first part, I'm going to move on to the second part of question 2. So when it comes to how I will physically and digitally provide my audience with a copy, I decided that I was going to be selling it at concession stands, bookshops and magazine stands. I think that when it comes to magazines, there's quite a nice tradition that people have to go to a shop, pick up a magazine which they like, and then they go home and read it and do whatever. But I think that it's important to carry this on, because otherwise, like, new generations would just think, oh yeah, everything's online, why would you even bother to go out? So I think that it is important to make sure that for the younger generations that you do go out and buy the magazine. On the other hand, when it comes to the digitally, I've decided that once a person has subscribed to my magazine, they will be able to get the online version, which they will be able to download and read whenever and wherever they are. They will also be able to access all of my other previous issues, and will get to see some inside scopes, which will be happening for the next magazine. This may mean that I'll need to set something up to make sure that that happens, but I think that it's important to make sure that I include both digital and physical distributions. So I've decided that I'm going to work with a larger distribution company, so that it means that I really can get my magazine out there and it wouldn't just become the equivalent of being like an indie movie, which doesn't have the help of one of the big five. Anyway, I'm losing off track now. So I decided that I'm going to distribute my magazine through Boa Media Group. The first thing that appealed to me in this one was the fact that 51% of all women read their magazines. That's a large percentage. As my magazine is mainly targeted at women, I think that this is a really good statistic to make sure that my magazine would actually sell. Okay. They also have over 600 brands of magazines. Although this may be a little bit of competition, I think that this shows that they can clearly handle themselves and they know what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have all of those. Okay, they also have 34 million readers, which are just in the, 34 million readers just in Germany alone, which is pretty impressive, bearing in mind that that is the largest media group which has reached Germany. They also sell 433 million issues every year in Germany, which is a pretty impressive statistic. They're also first in Australia and New Zealand, and they do publish the best-selling popular magazines. When it comes to Poland, they're the market leaders for the general interest magazine, and for the UK and USA, they lead the market in the weeklies and premium magazines, as well as for the youth listing and people categories. I think that all of this added together would be a really good thing for my magazine, as it's about the people who I want to target my audience, but also I know that it would be able to sell because it's got a good reputation, this place. From the majority of what I can see, they do tend to publish food and health magazines, although they do post a few fashion, gossip, film magazines. One thing that I have noticed though is that the majority of their magazines, well, I say the majority, quite a lot of their magazines are actually in German, so I feel as though that wouldn't be a massive competitor if mine weren't then. So that's okay actually. It also does have car magazines, which shows that they're adaptable and they're willing to try out different areas. I think that my magazine would still stand out from all of these, as mine's definitely the more younger demographic, but also looks wise. Mine's based around black pages, and the majority of theirs are pink, red, coral, like a ocean blue, and like a hot pink. So by having, like, mine's quite a strong black as well, I think that it will definitely stand out. What I have noticed as well is that a lot of their magazines are aimed at the older age group. So, for example, the 40 plus or the 50 plus, and they don't have a lot of the younger categories. So that's always a good thing to make my magazine stand out. So finally, why would the why would this company want my magazine? I think that they've even said that they're constantly expanding their product portfolio. So I think that this does show that they want to get involved in different areas, and that as mine is aimed at the younger demographic than what their typical ones are, it would allow them to go into those areas of media as well. I also think that because I have a different layout and how my magazine isn't just on white pages, it would really stand out from all the others. One thing as well, before I forget, is I think they may like the idea of how my magazine wants to help out the dyslexic group with the whole subtle coloured backgrounds. I think that it may not be over the top or anything like that, but it's something to consider, which they probably would like, actually. I think that they would like this because it's definitely a unique selling point, to say the least, which is always a nice thing. Yeah, and I think that sums up question 2.